Welcome to Divine Reflection. I hope you enjoy the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The parable of the Good Samaritan, found in Luke 10 verses 25 to 37, begins with a question posed by a lawyer to test Jesus. What must I do to inherit eternal life? This question was central, addressing the soul's eternal destiny and what is required to attain it. Jesus, instead of answering directly, turns the question back to the lawyer, asking him what the law says. The lawyer responds with the correct answer. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. However, the lawyer, seeking to justify himself, asks Jesus a crucial question. And who is my neighbor? This question leads to one of the most profound teachings of the New Testament, the parable of the Good Samaritan. The historical tension between Jews and Samaritans forms the backdrop of this parable. After the division of Israel into two kingdoms, the northern kingdom, which included Samaria, was conquered by the Assyrians. The intermarriage between Israelites and foreigners led to religious and ethnic tensions. The Jews of the southern kingdom viewed the Samaritans as impure and heretical. When Jesus places a Samaritan as the hero of the story, he challenges these deeply rooted prejudices. Jesus begins the parable by describing a man traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho, a notoriously dangerous road. This 27-kilometer journey was known for its steep terrain and was a frequent target for robbers. The man is attacked, stripped, and left half dead by the side of the road, setting the stage for the display of compassion, or lack thereof, that follows. The first person to encounter the injured man is a priest, a religious leader in Jewish society. The priest sees the man, but chooses to pass by on the other side of the road, ignoring him. Priests were responsible for upholding the laws of God and exemplifying compassion. However, his decision to avoid the man may have been influenced by fear of ritual impurity, as contact with a corpse would render him unclean. Jesus uses the priest's actions to highlight the dangers of legalism and religious formality without love. Next, a Levite passes by the wounded man. Levites were also involved in temple duties, and like the priest, he too passes on the other side. The Levite represents those who know the law, but fail to practice its core message of mercy. By including the Levite, Jesus reinforces the idea that knowing the law is not enough. What truly matters is acting on it with compassion. A Samaritan then approaches the injured man. For Jesus' audience, the idea of a Samaritan being the hero would have been shocking. Samaritans were despised by Jews, seen as impure and religiously deviant. Despite this, the Samaritan is moved by compassion when he sees the man. He doesn't view him through the lens of ethnicity or religion, but as a fellow human in need. The Samaritan's compassion is not passive. He immediately tends to the man's wounds, using oil and wine, common remedies at the time, to clean and heal his injuries. The Samaritan shows that true love involves practical, hands-on care. His actions stand in stark contrast to the religious figures who pass by without helping. After treating the man's wounds, the Samaritan places him on his own animal, likely a donkey, and takes him to an inn. This would have been a difficult journey on the rough road, but the Samaritan is willing to go out of his way to help. Jesus illustrates that genuine compassion often requires sacrifice and inconvenience. Upon arriving at the inn, the Samaritan does not immediately leave the man. Instead, he cares for him throughout the night, ensuring he receives proper attention. This shows the depth of the Samaritan's commitment. His compassion is not a one-time act, but a sustained effort to see the man fully recover. Before leaving, the Samaritan gives the innkeeper 2 denarii, enough to cover the man's stay for several days, and promises to pay for any additional expenses on his return. This gesture demonstrates not only his immediate care, but also his long-term commitment to the man's well-being. Jesus highlights that true love for one's neighbor involves personal and financial sacrifice. After finishing the parable, Jesus turns the question back to the lawyer. Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? This question challenges the lawyer to reevaluate his understanding of who qualifies as a neighbor. The lawyer must confront his own biases and cultural assumptions. The lawyer answers, the one who had mercy on him, but avoids directly acknowledging that it was a Samaritan. This shows the depth of the prejudice that existed. Even so, the lawyer is forced to admit that mercy, not ethnicity or religious background, defines who is a true neighbor. Jesus concludes with the powerful instruction, "Go and do likewise." The call is clear. It's not enough to understand what it means to love one's neighbor. You must live it out. Jesus commands his listeners to follow the Samaritan's example, extending compassion to everyone, regardless of who they are. By making a Samaritan the hero, Jesus directly challenges the cultural and religious prejudices of his day. The Jews viewed Samaritans as enemies. Yet in this story, the Samaritan exemplifies the love and mercy that God requires. Jesus' message is clear. True love knows no ethnic or religious boundaries. The compassion demonstrated by the Samaritan goes beyond feelings of sympathy. It is active and intentional. Jesus teaches that true compassion involves sacrifice, whether it be time, resources, or personal comfort. The Samaritan's willingness to help a stranger at great personal cost exemplifies the depth of love that Jesus calls his followers to show. The priest and Levite represent a religious establishment that prioritizes ritual purity over genuine care for others. Jesus criticizes this mindset, showing that adherence to religious rules is meaningless if it does not lead to mercy and justice. Through this, Jesus condemns a hollow religiosity that lacks compassion. The Samaritan goes beyond basic aid, ensuring the man's full recovery by taking him to an inn and providing for his needs. This act of hospitality reflects a deep sense of responsibility for the well-being of others, regardless of personal differences. The road from Jerusalem to Jericho was notorious for its dangers, and the Samaritan's willingness to stop and help, despite the risks, shows courage and determination. Jesus teaches that true compassion often requires us to step out of our comfort zones, even in the face of potential danger. For Jesus' Jewish audience, this parable was a radical challenge to their worldview. Jesus was not just asking them to show kindness. He was asking them to reevaluate who they considered worthy of their compassion. The Samaritan, the outcast, becomes the model for loving one's neighbor. The parable ends with Jesus' command to go and do likewise. This is a universal call to all believers to show active, sacrificial love to their neighbors, regardless of differences in race, religion, or background. Jesus' teaching in the parable continues to resonate today, urging us to practice kindness, mercy, and compassion in a world that often divides people based on superficial boundaries. Welcome to Divine Reflection. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.